Here are all of the books I have read in the past couple of months. This is what we're gonna go through today. I'm going to rate every book and also give you a little, not summary, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but overview of just the basic plot line. I'm not gonna go in order of what I read first. I'll tell you if I actually recommend books for you. First, we have a book. I feel like a lot of people have read this book, a lot of teens especially. It's called One of Us is Lying. I took the cover off of this because covers just like get in my way sometimes. And it centers around these 4 people who all got sent to detention this one day, and they're all from different groups. Kind of like the Breakfast Club. They all get sent to detention along with this other person. So there are 5 of them in total, but only 4 leave because one of them dies. Pretty much the whole time, detectives are trying to figure out which one of the 4 people in detention killed this other person, but it does go between every single person's point of view in this book, which I think is super cool, so you can see exactly what they're thinking. While I was reading this, I could have pictured any of the characters being guilty of murder and also not guilty. The whole time you're kind of guessing. The book is called One of Us is Lying, so you just have to assume that one of them is telling you not actually their point of view. The ending in this book is so good. Only thing about this book that I didn't like was the couple. I didn't like them together. Probably people out in the universe did, but I just didn't think they were good for each other, and that's my only complaint. So I give this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I have never given a book 5 stars before, so maybe that's my fault. I definitely recommend it for sure, especially if you love mystery, which is my favorite genre. Another book I read this summer was called Homegoing. Read this for summer reading. While I was reading this book, it was super confusing, but I kept going because I had to read it for school, and honestly by the end of it I actually ended up liking it. I'm still kind of confused on the plot, but I'll try to explain it. Pretty much starts with one woman at the top of the family tree. The family tree splits into 2 different sides. It follows those 2 different sides throughout the whole book, which is interesting, but there are like 25 characters. That's probably an exaggeration, but my ring light cut out, so we're using natural lighting now, which is fine. But I counted how many characters there are, and there are 39. So it's a lot, and I feel like if I didn't have to read this for school and if I just read it for pleasure, I would have liked it a lot better, because at the end of the day I did have to learn all of the characters and their individual stories, which was a lot to remember. But if I was just going through this and enjoying everyone's individual storylines, I think I would have liked it a lot better. This personally isn't my favorite genre. It's historical fiction, and I like history somewhat. I'm definitely more of a fantasy thriller, you know? So I'm gonna give this a 3.5 out of 5. If you like historical fiction, definitely read it, because it is interesting. Just know there are a lot of characters, and if you get bored with like one storyline, this is honestly perfect. Next, I don't want to do that one actually. Next up, There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. Guys, this book is the latest one that I read. I kind of stopped like halfway through, probably in like the 200-page area because school started, but then I caught back up and I finished it. This is another thriller, you can probably tell because of the cover, but the plot is main character is moved to this new town for a reason that is somewhat mysterious. It's kept a secret from the reader for a very long time. You know that it has something to do with her past, and you know that it has influenced the way she acts in this new town that she moved to. It's not from the main character Makana's perspective, but it definitely follows her around most of the time, and it also skips to different scenes that the serial killer is in, not from their perspective either. Makana and her friend and her boyfriend end up searching for this serial killer. Everyone's worried that they're gonna be killed next. The one complaint about this book is the serial killer like action wasn't really there that much. When it was there, it was perfect. Like, it was really thrilling. There wasn't that many scenes where the serial killer was like killing people. That sounds so bad. I guess that also made the action more exciting because you got to experience like the downtime. I don't really know. My major complaint is that I also didn't like the couple in this book. I couldn't picture it. I don't know. I honestly give this a 4.5 out of 5. My notes I wrote a 4, but I actually liked it a lot. So the person who, okay, wait, I don't know if I should say that. I don't want to spoil anything. Okay, I won't say it, but I definitely do recommend you reading this book. Thought it was like the perfect fast read size. It's 287 pages. I recommend. My second summer reading book, Tim O'Brien, The Things They Carried. This book is famous, I guess. It was written in a really cool way. The author, Tim O'Brien, is in the book, which is really cool. He made himself a character, but this book is also historical fiction. It is about the Vietnam War, and Tim O'Brien is in the war. I would probably describe it as like a collection of war stories, but what I thought was interesting, I don't know if he did this on purpose. Sometimes the chapters were 3 pages, and then sometimes they were like 20 something, and it like flipped pretty evenly. Tim O'Brien talks about how writing and telling his like war stories has really helped how he coped with the war, and he talks about the other characters that he has met, their stories. I think Ever Summer Reading book though is a little bit less enjoyable because you do have to annotate it and really study the writing. The main reason I don't think I enjoyed this book to its fullest extent is summer reading, but also because I'm not a big fan of strictly war stories. There was like some gruesome violence in this, in one particular scene to an animal that I just could not deal with. Warning for that. On the front, New York Times says, a book that matters not only to the reader invested in Vietnam, but to anyone interested in the craft of writing as well. Honestly, made me more intrigued to read it. As someone who likes to write stories, there definitely were tips in here for that, which is kind of cool because the author is a character and he writes about writing. I've never seen that done before. So I'm gonna give this a 3, but again, historical fiction, not my genre. If you like historical fiction, liked strictly war stories, definitely read this. Next, The Lost. I read this book over Christmas break, but I wanted to bring it back and show you guys because I love this book. It's another thriller, the best genre ever. It's by Anastasia Preston. It's about, oh my god, let me see if I can recall what even happens. I think it starts out with a teenage girl who knows that in her town people are going missing. Not being murdered, but just they disappear. And she goes to this party, and not spoiling anything, I promise. She also gets taken away. Don't worry, it's literally on the back. Piper, the main character, and her best friend Hazel sent to this lair thing in the woods. It's not a place where they're put to be kept imprisoned. It's literally this place where they're tested in like extreme conditions to see if they can live and to see like what can break a human being. It's literally one of the most thrilling books I've ever read because they're put in this room with these other people that have been kidnapped, and they grow like a close connection with them, but then the captors like slowly try and take them apart, see what makes their friendships crumble. It's like psychology almost. I have no idea. Every chapter is like captivating, but at the end of the book it switches perspectives because the book is all from Piper's perspective until the end, which is so interesting. So I actually like very much recommend this book. If you want a really good page turner to get you back into reading, this is it. Mwah. I just realized that she's a Wattpad writer. Anyways, the last book I have to share is this book. Lovely War. So I was sent this book by my grandpa. Actually, most of these books are from my grandpa. This book I had kind of away for a while because it's so big. And I usually read short books. I mean, literally all of these books are like nothing compared to this one. Let me start from the beginning. Okay, this book is like war stories. We're going fighting, and this is what we eat while we're fighting, and we're in the trenches now. Like, that's that type of book. But they're 2 different types of war stories. That makes sense. This is like a different genre of war stories. And I definitely like this genre better. It's from the perspective of Greek gods, which is so cool. So they're telling this overall war story, and Aphrodite is actually the one to start off the story. Mainly because it's not really a war story, it's more of a love story in a way, a story of friendship, a story of romance, heartbreak. It's so good. Why is there a child screaming? screaming. It starts out from Aphrodite's point of view. She's telling this story to Ares, Hades, Apollo, Hephaestus. Is that his name? She starts out with the main character Hazel, who then meets James. And it starts out as a love story, but then James gets drafted to war, where Ares comes in since he's the god of war. And then it starts following a guy named Aubrey. And that's where Apollo comes in because Aubrey is a piano player. Then we finally have the last character come in named Colette. So these gods, Aphrodite, Apollo, and Hades, and Ares, are telling the story of Colette, James, Aubrey, and Hazel. I'm gonna explain this better right now because I don't like the way I explained it. Without giving anything away, a lot of bad things happened because of war, and it's a story of kind of how everyone is coping with their own like hardships through war, and then also they're trying to maintain the love and the friendships that they had and not let war get in the way of those, even though it's really hard because people are drafted, people are like volunteering in different states. This is the description on the back because this book is kind of hard to explain. Hazel, James, Aubrey, and Colette. A classical pianist from London, a British would-be architect turned soldier, a Harlem boy, ragtime genius in the US Army, and a Belgian orphan with a gorgeous voice and a devastating past. Their story, as told by a goddess Aphrodite, who must spin the tale or face judgment on Mount Olympus, is filled with hope and heartbreak, prejudice and passion, and reveals that through war is a formidable force. It's no match to the transcendent power of love. Since the gods of Olympus are telling the story, they have their own things going on up there, which adds a whole nother layer to kind of how the story plays out itself, because they're going through their own stuff which impacts the mortals' stories and how they tell them, and also what happens to the mortals in the end. In the stories, the four characters intertwine pretty early on. Honestly, I love when stories do that. Literally the only complaint I have about this book, only one, because I love this book so much. The couple is so cute. I don't even have to complain about that. One thing is the ending. I'm obviously not gonna tell you guys what the ending is. If I'm gonna say read any of these books, read this one. I haven't told you what the ending is. Maybe you'll love it. I just wasn't a fan. Sadly, so mad that I don't like the ending. I guarantee you 80% of the people who read this book were like, the ending was so good. I'm just mad about the ending. That's it. I give this a 4.8. Literally, it could have been a 5. If you like the ending of this book, it's a 5. That is everything I read. Again, mostly thrillers. I'm a big thriller mystery person. I think all of them should be recommended. Yay, thank you guys so much for watching and listening to me talk about books. Leave book recommendations below. I would love to hear literally any genre because I don't want to get stuck on thriller for like my whole life. I want to read other genres too. And also tell me what books you guys have read recently and rate them in the comments because I would obviously love to talk to you about books. Yay!